Folks, we are live. Welcome to Talking Crit. I am Eric Tenkar, one of your hosts. With me, as always, Bad Mike, my once a week work spouse. Yes, that one. Satan.
Mhm.
Satan. And supporting, and I can say holding up the show because
He's Atlas.
he's Atlas. He holding the show on his shoulders is none other than Jim Kitchen.
Hooray!
Yay.
So just a public service announcement. May or may not be here next week, and I don't miss shows. I don't. I have never missed a show. Actually, I come in. I had a show where I had pneumonia, and I popped in for 5 minutes to tell you I was dying.
Yes.
That's the closest I've come to missing a show. But I'm going to try not to miss next week. But I have a. I'm going to be going to EggCon. I'll be in Madison the night before EggCon, and I don't know how long the dinner I'm going to is going to last. I will pop in no matter what. But for all my fans out there, just letting you know, there might be a dry week next week without your bad mic fix.
Mike is journeying to Wisconsin.
Doing EggCon. Zach and I will be doing EggCon. If you're a member of the North Texas RPG or North Texas RPG Con Facebook page, we will be posting live chats there along the way. Maybe probably about 2 a day. We'll be eating
Sorry,
pork
you got
loins.
thrown under the bus there, Mike.
Oh.
Jen says that Zach will get you connected.
Sweet.
I'm not worried about being connected. I'm just worried we'll be in the middle of dinner while it's happening. So, if that's true, then Alex Kamer will be on the show too, because that's what I'm supposed to have dinner with is Alex Kamer. So we may have special emergency pop-in guest Alex Kamer next week. You never know. We'll definitely have Zach Glazer special pop-in guest. So, but yes, so I may or may not participate fully next week, but I will have full content of EggCon the week after that because I will do my usual drive. I don't fly. For those of you that know me, it's a 2-day drive there, 2-day back. We'll be stopping for. I'm getting hammered.
Bad Mike internet connection.
Why am I getting? These are my friends. I thought they're not my friends.
No. Listen, friends will bust your balls.
That is true. So, Death Angel, I do not plan on catching pneumonia again, and I think that is a feature of Gary Con is that when you go to Gary Con, it's February in Wisconsin. You are going to get sick. So that's
Spin the wheel of diseases.
Which one? My favorite comment ever on that was Steve Winter. He told me he was not going to attend Gary Con anymore. I said, "Why not?" He said, "I think they're pumping out the flu through the HVAC system."
Right. It's like that. It's like that casino they discovered Legionnaire's disease in the HVAC system, right? It's like, I don't need any more COVID. I'm good.
He had COVID 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
And I haven't even had that much. And Steve's a little bit older than me. That must just be. I think it just he just gave up. He's I can't.
It just sucks.
So I'm hoping the summer is a little more gentle.
Dude, you should just start taking airborne like all day between now and like the end of the month. You should.
I've got my zinc, this is my B12 and my vitamin D and C. I've been loading. I've been vitamin loading.
That's excellent.
So hopefully I'll be ready for it. But yes, it should be fun. I'm really excited to see what Heidi and Eric have going on. Eric Garland have going on there. I'm excited to see a lot of my friends. It looks like they have a really cool guest list. A lot of old timers don't make it to a lot of cons like Tom Wom and Mike Carr because they just literally don't travel. They really don't travel at all. So that's kind of cool to see them there. It's going to be fun, man. I'm excited about. I'm always excited about going to a con that I'm not running because I can have so much more fun if I'm just sitting there shooting the shit, hanging out with vendors, getting stuff signed. I've got a box right here that I'm embarrassed to show you guys, so I won't. Of stuff I want to get signed by people there. I'm gonna fanboy it up. I got 3 copies of B1 for Mike Carr to sign.
Wow,
I've got a bunch of Easley stuff. I've got Howard John. I've got all kinds of stuff. Harold Johnson stuff. I got crazy amount of stuff. So that's my week next week. So what do we have going on this week, guys? What is happening?
So many things to talk about. I want to talk about Diamond, but I almost feel like we sort of wait. But I feel like we should just start talking about.
Let's just do Diamond because Diamond is the cause du jour.
So let me begin. Okay, so if our favorite smart aleck shows up, I'm not pontificating. I just need to read some things because I got to lead into this, right? So ad populum or argumentum ad populum is a logical fallacy that occurs when a claim is deemed true or valid simply because it is widely accepted or believed by the majority. This fallacy appeals to popularity rather than providing logical evidence or reasoning to support the claim. So, Jim, why the hell are you talking about this? So let me discuss something. One of the things that has come up is that Diamond distributors, Diamond Comics, all the companies that were owned by the Jeppy family were sold in May to a company that you are not familiar with, but you will be familiar with after we're done tonight, called Ad Populum. So Ad Populum is an umbrella company, and they own or have owned several companies under this umbrella. So let me give you an idea of who all they own. They own NECA, N-E-C-A, the pop culture action figure company. They own Joseph Enterprises, the folks that make Chia Pet and The Clapper. They own Kid Robot, the people that make all the D&D licensed plushies and so on. Not to be outdone, they also own WizKids. They own WizKids and own everything WizKids. They own Department 56. I'm skipping over a few of them, but let me end with the crown jewel of their collection, which is Graceland. This is the company that owns Graceland. Graceland. Why is this important? So one of the things that you should know is this is the company that is overseeing and owns all of the Diamond properties that we're talking about. And I had a conversation earlier this week with somebody who said one of the things that everybody is missing about all this Diamond fiasco and how it's screwing over smaller publishers and so on. And that's a sidebar. I think if Ty shows up tonight, we should encourage Ty to sort of get involved in the conversation. Ty is much more knowledgeable about all of this. But this is the company that bought and sold out Loot Crate. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with what happened with Loot Crate. No. But Loot Crate essentially was unsustainable and not doing well. And then this company swooped in and bought out Loot Crate, bought out its assets, and essentially fire sold it and shut her down. And that's not. I mean, this is essentially what happened to Sears. Come in, and chop it up and throw it out and be done with it. Mm-hmm. I had a subscription to the Fallout Loot Crate, and when the changeover occurred, it went from coming in the Fallout box, which the packaging changed over time, but it went like literally 1 month I got it in a Fallout box and the theme for the month and so on and so forth, and then the next month I got a UPS my Tyvek envelope, everything thrown into it haphazard. I got duplicates of prior months, and I literally called and canceled before they renewed for another 6 months straight. So why are we talking about Ad Populum? So Ad Populum is owned by one person, and I had his name, and I don't have it up right now, who, as we speak, is either on his way back or is still in Eastern Europe for a real estate buying trip, because last week he was trying to negotiate the sale of what's left of Vlad Tepes' castle.
Jeez, Dracula.
I couldn't even make this weird shit up. He was essentially in Eastern Europe trying to buy what's left of Dracula's castle. Why is this of import? Because we don't know a lot of what's going on in Diamond, except that Diamond went through a round of layoffs, and frankly, all the good people from Diamond left. I'm hearing rumors that they're going to start a new distributorship and that will be announced at the end of the month. There have been principal key hires from the former Diamond staff. ad populum, this is their modus operandi, right? If the people at the game companies who are being screwed over their inventory, this is not shocking in any way, shape, or form. It's not shocking in any way, shape, or form. There's a long history of this. If you look at their website, and Eric, you can bring bring that homepage up that I sent you the link to.
Cat, you got to move.
You can have a look at the brands they own. What's really striking in that nobody has really put the 2 to 2 connection, or the 1 + 1 = 2. Look at that right there. Kid Robot and WizKids are 2 of WotC's biggest licensors. I have no idea what the D&D brand means for Kid Robot or WizKids, but NECA as well. All of these are collectible. Areas. They now own Party City. They own all the Party City chain across the United States.
Wow. They were bankrupt.
So if I was ad populum, one of the companies I would probably be looking at fairly aggressively is that there's companies on the bubble right now that are probably being targeted for all of this, for being bought out and so on. And Diamond, they just put together a giant chunk of cash. They bought Diamond, and then they've stripped and ripped it out the same way that I think it was Michael Milken did with Sears.
Yeah.
So ties in the chat now. And so one of the things that Ty talked about last week, and I really think this is critically important, Ty laid out in last week's chat the very specific terms that would have had to have been over in the contracts, the terms that would have had to been used in the contracts to prevent their inventory. There's a lot of shenanigans around this. But so far, in all the coverage that I've seen about this Diamond business everywhere, nobody's actually talked about the umbrella company. Nobody's actually talked about who bought Diamond and how they've behaved and what they've done with other companies that they bought and hacked up and sold and so on and so forth. So none of this, I did a deep dive on this. I had the conversation earlier this week with somebody in the industry who is intimately connected with what's been going on with Diamond and trying to get inventory out of Diamond and so on and so forth. Their point was that it was made very clear 4 to 6 to 8 weeks ago, if you have inventory, you need to make arrangements and you need to come get it and you need to get it out of the warehouse. And the person that I spoke to did this and got it and took it out of their possession. So there's a lot of companies that clearly did not act on this. There are a lot of companies that clearly did not move in this direction. I think that's a different discussion for a little later in the show. But one of the things that I think we just need to do is I think we shouldn't just shine the light on what's been going on at Diamond. I think that the angle of the light needs to go up some and take a look at ad populum. Because ad populum certainly seems, my guess is that Funko continues to start to be in trouble. And my guess is that within 6 months to a year, ad populum will make an offer and buy out Funko. They're both California-based companies. I think it makes perfect sense.
It's in their wheelhouse. This is absolutely in their wheelhouse. Yeah,
that's right. That's absolutely right. But one of the things that has not been discussed at all is that this is their strategy, right? They come in, they chop it up, they divvy it out. If they can work with of selling off the real estate, they will. They're just out to make all the money, right? And Mr. Gunn's right. Like this is venture capital 101, but it's also consolidating brands under a single umbrella. And truthfully, if you are upset about what has happened to the smaller game companies that have been caught up in losing their inventory to ad populum's bankruptcy, and these are all separate companies. They've all lined them up as separate companies. I'm sure they're operating under their own Delaware incorporations. So it's not ad populum that owns the inventory, but they're operating this way. My guess is that the companies that are involved they're all just victims of the same sort of thing. And here comes Ty. In theory, there should be no distinction between the inventory that people came and got and inventory that was left with Diamond. That's right. And And Mr. Gunn, yeah, we covered it just before you came in. That's exactly it. Like if you do a search for ad populum, that's the first thing that comes up is the definition of the logical fallacy. And that's what makes this so enjoyable, right? Is that he's got tongue firmly planted in cheek when he founded the company. And then he's just been on one after another aggressive purchase after aggressive purchase after aggressive purchase. And so when you look at their portfolio, it's very clearly let's strategically go after collectible markets and so on and so forth. So,
well, one thing somebody asked in there, and I think Jim and I can talk about this a little bit. I know this because I was involved in a Loot Crate for about 2 years. So somebody asked, how did Loot Crate go bankrupt? Well, the Loot Crate it's one of those companies that did great until they didn't do great. And here's the deal. The shelf life for any Loot Crate was about 6 to 12 months, maybe 2 years if they could really stretch it. Because what you're doing is you're getting a box every month, and it has tchotchkes in it. It has comics or games or books, depending on what, like Jim was talking about the Fallout one. I did a Conan one once. I did an RPG. There was several people that were doing RPG Loot Crates. And these crates you get them every month and you'd pay a fee. It would usually be on your credit card. So you wouldn't even know it would just charge your credit card every month and you get this crate in the mail. And it has cool stuff. And I mean, the one that I actually sold quite a bit of Judges Guild to, that they ran about $300 to $500 a month. That was their subscription base, which is small. That's on the small side. Some of the big Loot Crates did quite a bit more than that. And they would every month put free gaming stuff in their dice, bookmarks, sometimes overstock books. There was a lot of companies. I know Frog Out Games sometimes would have hardcovers in there. I mean, there was some nice stuff in there until there wasn't. And the thing about Loot Crate, and Jim can back this up, is it's good until it's not good, until they start running out of stuff to put in the Loot Crate. And they eventually do. You just can't have a Loot Crate that goes on forever and ever and ever. At some point, you start cannibalizing yourself and say, look, what else Fallout can we put in here? We put out, 12 months of Fallout stuff. What's left?
Let me read something real quick for everybody. It started off with a bang in 2012. In 2016, it was the #1 ranked as fastest growing private company. It announced it was filing for bankruptcy protection in August of 2019, laying off close to its half remaining workers in the weeks prior.
So 7 years. Yeah.
They owed over $30 million in debt, $5.87 million in taxes, while its credit card processor had withheld payments to the company. They filed under Chapter 11 and plan to continue to fulfill orders but seek buyers. And here we go. On October 1st, 2019, subscribers were informed by email that Loot Crate's sale to Money Chest LLC, the majority of which was funded by Nika. The company now operates under a new name as the Loot Company, as again a sub company under NECA. So again, I hear a lot of people talking about Diamond, and I hear a lot of people. The heart of my understanding, the heart of what happened at Loot Crate was Loot Crate works if you have a cost mechanism like selling things on television. Everybody remembers Mr. Microphone and the Pocket Fisherman. And the rule for television is if you're selling it for $10, you want to put it on the air for the cost of $1, right? Because you need that extra wide margin to cover your advertising expenses and so on. And when you have a runaway hit and the phones light up, you're making money hand over fist. Mm-hmm. And so Loot Crate made sense if you kept your margins in those kinds of numbers. You're using tchotchkes and T-shirts. The T-shirts are thin and so on and so forth. But the problem is that they began carrying too much inventory. Crates weren't selling through. They were ordering too many, and crate subscriptions were dropping off.
The only way this business model works, you have to keep replacing subscribers that leave with new subscribers. So you're constantly running. You're constantly turning over, flipping your subscriber base. That is tough to do. I will tell you right now, that is really tough.
And John Miller, it's not Nika. Nika is owned by a company, again, called Ad Populum, Populum. Eric has the website, and we put
I'll put it in the chat.
But yeah, you can't just keep flipping. At a certain point, your subscriber base basically runs out. You keep flipping it. It doesn't go forever. And they actually had some issues because when this other company took over, Jim, I remember hearing from a lot of people that so what you do is you give them your credit card, and it would just every month they charge your credit card. Well, they have one of those things you hear about a lot where people were calling up, canceling Loot Crate, yet their credit card was still being charged. And so
Right.
they had a lot of problems with that. People getting really pissed off. And once you start challenging credit card charges, that they will shut down your credit card, or they will shut down your ability. Like if a bunch of Chase customers keep saying here's a company that keeps charging my card, that Chase will go to that company and say you cannot use Chase cards anymore. And I had heard they might have had something like that happen because they were charging so many cards that had canceled that they were just like, yeah, you can't use American Express anymore. You can't use Discover. You can't use Chase because they were egregiously going against the wishes of the subscribers who were like, I want to cancel my card. And so what you do is you pick up the phone, you call the credit card company.
So interestingly, if you go to the Loot Crate website and you look at their careers, you would be applying to Radical Share, a strategic global digital marketing agency specializing in pop culture entertainment, including the world's most popular consumer product companies, NECA, the National Entertainment Collectibles Association, Kid Robot, Loot Crate, Ruby's, JEI, Costumes.com, and Denuo Nova. And again, these are all companies under the umbrella of Ad Populum. So where do you go from here? I think we're going to get into a discussion about shenanigans and some other things that have come out of all this. But I would throw this out. If you aren't happy with what's been going on, you can always take one of three paths. You can go on the internet and you can talk on a show with two other hosts. You can post on social media somewhere and hashtag various companies. But the third is don't buy products from the subsidiary companies of the holding company that's hosing over the people you love.
Very simple.
Right.
And so that's why I thought I'd sort of point all this out. Like, you're not happy at what's happened with Diamond, and you're still buying WizKids and Kid Robot and going to Party City and Loot Crate. There's any numbers of ways to make your dollars go somewhere else and spend miniature. You can spend money on miniatures with Reaper. You can spend money on miniatures with Ral Partha. You can spend money on accessories, et cetera, but you guys watching this, you guys got to figure that out and talk about it. But nobody, in all the coverage I've seen about Diamond, nobody has talked about this aspect of it, and I think it's long overdue to have a discussion about this, because Ad Populum's actions around Diamond and what they've done with Diamond, again, my bold internet prediction is that within a year, my guess is we'll see Funko wrapped up in this. My guess is Ad Populum will target Funko and pull them in. That's I'll be wrong, and I'm wrong twice a day like a bad clock. But really and truly, I think that's just where this is going. But all the people who are like, I can't believe this is happening to all these game companies, these mom and pop game companies, blah 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 blah. Okay, fine. You want to do something about it? Quit buying WizKids. Quit buying Kid Robot. At every opportunity, talk about this and start pointing this stuff out. And those are your virtual pitchforks and torches, because just complaining about Diamond isn't going to change anything. You want to punish people, punish them that way. Money counts.
Yeah.
Money talks.
Yeah. No, and Jim is right. And look, so just the fact that you brought that up, and this is really interesting. This tells me that they are very, very experienced in the vagaries of the bankruptcy, how that works. I mean, these guys, they have lawyers that's their specialty, it sounds to me like, because that's what they do. They buy distressed companies, they strip the assets out, strip mine it, and then they take the name and see if they can get some money out of that. I mean, this is probably a very efficient organization when it comes to
I think there's no question. And if you missed you know nothing about my spouse, I can assure you. I think one of the things that I would say about all this is, if you missed it, the guy who sits at the top of Ad Populum was in Eastern Europe last week, looking at purchasing, I guess, according to my source, looking to purchase Dracula's old castle,
Jeez.
which is
Well,
so
there's
batshit crazy. I don't even have
It's
words
probably
for it.
there's methods. It's probably going to be a tourist attraction, right? I think it's a tourist attraction now, but he probably wants to monetize it even more and make Dracula T-shirt, whatever. I mean, this company. That is what they do, man. Because the way you described it, and the companies you named, they know what they're doing. They're absolutely.
There's no question, right? They have figured out how to squeeze every last dollar out of every single company. They have not shut down. And they took one look at Diamond and said, these are assets. These are assets that we can strip, rip, sell, and collect our money and move on.
And this makes me wonder, because this company, as we've seen, this is a multinational, multi-million-dollar company, maybe $1 billion. Is there any way that they overlooked something that a lawsuit by Green Run or anybody else is going to prevail? Is there any way that they've overlooked? Because it seems to me like they're very good at this, at doing this.
Ty raised this point. So when you choose to invest your money, like you're going to go and buy stock, you're going to put money and buy stock you're going to buy shares of a company. One of the questions you should always ask yourself is, oh my God, if they chained the doors tomorrow and there was a bankruptcy sale, would there be anything to sell off and cover their debts? And if the debt ratio to the assets is the wrong way, then you should probably not invest in that company. I think it's just, what are they doing? So hold on a second. So somebody asked about Graceland. Well, interestingly enough, Graceland was purchased. So yes, in May of 2024, a company claimed they owned it, but now that was wrong. That was the attempted foreclosure, and that's not the case now. My guess is they're operating it on behalf of the Presley family.
It's so I know a little bit about this. I have some friends that live in Memphis. It's been passive income for the past 30, 40, 50 years by the Presley family. And this is probably a management company. They're managing it because the Presley family, they honestly have nothing to do with it. They don't go visit it. They don't go there. This is just, they get a big old check in the mail every whatever. Whoever's left. I mean, most of the Presley family, unfortunately, sadly had died the last few years. We lost quite a few of them. But the ones that are left get a check, and it's just a passive income thing. That's right. I mean, it's still it might be the number one tourist attraction in Memphis. It's right up there. Not much to see if you go there. I've been there a couple of times. I haven't actually did the tour because that was kind of a waste of money, I've heard. But I've been outside the walls and seen the human flotsam and jetsam that gathers there. And, oh my, it's worth a trip. It is worth a trip there if you've never been there. There's a wall out front of bricks, and people have wrote on them. And every month they come out and spray it down and wash everything off. But my God, just the stuff written on the rocks outside is enough to keep you occupied for an hour of laughter, because there is some funny stuff in there. But yeah, so it's a passive income thing. They're probably the management company. They scoop a little bit off the top every month, or however the checks come in, and they send the rest off. And it's probably a great gig if you can get it, man. It sounds like an awesome gig. I mean, people are always going to want to see where the king died on the throne, right? I mean, they're just going to want to see.
It's all said. So it looks like they operate Graceland. It looks like they operate Graceland to I just think that this is a twist that nobody's really sort of talked about or brought any prominence to. And frankly, I think it's long overdue. I think if you look at this, two of WotC's major licensors are WizKids and Kid Robot, right? There's a tremendous amount of money that is generated out of that. You want to cause pain, believe me, you start organizing a boycott of WizKids and Kid Robot, and you start getting louder and louder, and they're going to start complaining to WotC, and WotC's going to start complaining back. And I think you want to start applying some leverage. That's how you start. Monkey wrench.
So as I said, so we have it's been a subject of a little bit of controversy because Green Ronin. I don't have it in front of me. Sorry, guys, I should have pulled it up. I don't know where their GoFundMe is now.
I'm sure I can
I'll
find
look.
it.
I'll
You can
look
look
while
up
you're
real quick.
talking, Mike.
They have wanted to. They've said that they want to use money to hire a lawyer. They raised it. First of all, it was $3,000, I believe, and that was not going, or 8,000. It went up to 30. I can't remember.
It's a 50K goal right now. It's at 35.
So they've already changed the goalpost twice. It was 8, then it went to 30. Now it's 50. They're purported they're going to fight this in court. Now, I don't know. I don't pretend to be a lawyer. I know lawyers. I don't know. I don't know what their chances are. I'm just going to say from what Jim's told us, I don't like their chances because this is a company that eats, sleeps, drinks, breathes, fornicates bankruptcy. I mean, they have
I don't
done
know
this.
about that. I certainly didn't say that about Green Ronin. I think.
No. I'm talking about the other company.
Yes.
Populi or whatever. They know what they're doing. I find it hard to believe they would leave a loophole out there that Green Ronin can hire a lawyer to say, "Aha, I found the secret. We're going to get all our inventory back, folks." I mean, I could be wrong though. Like I said, I am not a lawyer. I don't know. And Ty makes a point here, and I think he said this before. Green Ronin would be better off using the money to bid on their own product at the auction. So Ty is, I think, telling us he doesn't think they have a great chance of prevailing in this. I don't know. And I really don't know anybody that it's all speculation, right? Because, unless, like I said, unless you're a lawyer that this is your specialty. I've seen lots of lawyers that I respect talk about this online, but they always make a point of saying, look, this is not my specialty. I don't, that this is something I studied in law school. This is what I know, but I'm not a lawyer that excels in this field.
Right.
And Ty has a great point earlier in the comments. And in consignment deals, always have an agreement that says, quote, title remains with publisher and only transfers to buyer, not consigner, on sale of the product.
Yeah. Is that what the DC or the UCC form says? I don't know.
And so I think he really nails it. I think Ty really makes the point that is unfortunate because, I mean, we make jokes about it all the time. That there you go. Put Ty's latest up in the chat. I don't think Green Ronin will prevail. They're going to try to overcome the Uniform Commercial Code with essentially, but we thought we had a different deal, and Chase thought it was a different deal.
Chase doesn't care about you, Green GR. That they don't. Chase wants their money, and from what I understand, it's been said a couple places. They're the number one creditor here. That they due to things that Diamond said to Chase to get an extension on the loan or whatever. They are the number one creditor, and they're going to be first in line. And look, if Chase is first in line, you're screwed because they have whole departments of lawyers. That's all they do is this kind of stuff.
So if you look at the update from Green Ronin, they talk about how the first thing they did after it hit a certain point is they wrote a check to a firm in Maryland for the retainer. Ty can chime in, but my guess is the retainer is probably $10,000 to $15,000. That would be my guess. Maybe even a little higher. Ty can chime in and say what he thinks. But my guess is that the initial goal, and did you say it was 8,000 or 10,000?
I think it was like, did it start real low?
I think initially it was 8,000 or 9,000.
Yeah, it started very low, and they went to 30.
29.
So that tells me that they had a meeting with a lawyer, and the lawyer said, "I ain't touching this without a retainer of at least 10K or 15K."
And now it's up to 50. So
and so that's money that has to be paid to the attorney before they do anything. And okay, so they upped their request for money, and they raised it, they hit it, they raised it again, and I think it's going to be a tough.
Look, I mean, it's great they have such passionate fans, and good for them. And I would, I'm not a giant Green Ronin fan. I don't really like most of their games. Mutants and Masterminds probably the only thing I can really handle. But I don't wish them ill, and I hope they would prevail. It just seems to me like this is a Hail Mary, man. This is a major Hail Mary. I saw a lot of people on their chat because I did a lot of looking around this week, and I saw a lot of, well, just hire a lawyer and the lawyer will get you out of this. So, I mean, like lawyers are these magical creatures that you hire a lawyer and they can cover everything. And Eric can tell you that's not true because he knows how that works.
Well, I hired a good law firm.
Yes,
but you get what you pay for.
You get what you pay for, absolutely, and you get slow justice, don't you? Your justice is not quick.
God,
it is slow. Those they grind. Those things grind slowly, and so. I'm glad, like I said, it's really cool. They had passionate fans enough to. I'm looking at their page right now. They've got $1,000 donation here. They've got some pretty big numbers. People popping in and throwing money at them.
500, almost 500 donations of now a 500 donations got them to $35,000 with the single largest donation of 1,000.
Yep, that's it. I mean, that's great, but I just don't know what. Like Ty says, and some other people I've seen online who talk about this, there doesn't appear to be an end game that's going to work out for them, I guess is the
I let's see how it plays out. Yeah, I don't want to guess, but I'll take Ty, who is the subject matter expert. I'll take Ty's learned opinion and say, okay. Because the worst thing we have in the game industry is people who believe that they are copyright attorneys, who believe that they are legal eagles, who believe that they can navigate the labyrinthian order of international trademarks and copyrights, and they cannot. And I just think it's
James. I wouldn't speculate on that, and I wouldn't say that out loud personally.
But I think that's terrible.
But I think that they're. I like to believe they're legit. Let's put it that way. I would like to believe they legitimately want a lawyer to try to look. If they lose, I mean, this is not good. We talked about this last week quite a bit. They're going to get double screwed here. They're going to get screwed because they're going to lose $300,000 for the inventory, and they get screwed again when that inventory pops up at Five Below and Ollie's and all these discount stores. And they're having to compete against their own product. And they're trying to sell an expansed rule book for $60 when it's at Ollie's for $20. So they're getting double screwed here. So this is probably to them the best way to try to work something out. Because, I mean, the alternative is they're screwed. So that's the reality is they're screwed.
Well, and
maybe there's something else here that they might not be screwed as bad. So really, what are you going to – look, go for it. Just do a Hail Mary, do a shot in the dark and see what happens. And look, if you're out the money, you're out the money that was GoFunded you. It wasn't your money to begin with, and you're still going to be out the $300,000 worth of product, which, and we talked about a lot of these companies, a lot of these smaller companies, they're not going to be, I guarantee you they're not going to be able, especially the comic book companies, they're not going to be able to afford to lose that much stock or that much consignment stuff. They just can't. That they had. I can't remember if it was Paizo or Green Ronin. They signed a deal, and I want to say 2017, where they stored all, not just the majority, but everything they had for sale at the Diamond Warehouse. And I have to look that up again. I don't remember if it's Paizo or Green Ronin, but their entire stock was there, which means that I don't know what they're going to do for Gen Con next month. What are they going to do for Gen Con? Unless you get something in the back of your car or in your.
I look forward to taking pictures in 2 weeks
to see what's on the shelf there at the Gen Con booth. I mean, I'll be hopeful. I mean, that's the biggest sale day of the year, right? It's got to be the biggest sale weekend of the year, Gen Con, and they're going to have nothing to sell because it was all with. I need to look that up and be sure. I'm not sure if it's Paizo or if it's Green Ronin, but one of those companies had in their entire backstock with Diamond, which of course, then if you want to say I told you so, then you're going to have to say, well,
I'm going to say this. I hope that this becomes an institutional lesson within the game industry. I hope that this becomes an institutional lesson because I really, really, really hope that people look at this and before they start, I mean, come on. The easy path is never the right path. It's always the hard path. And when you look at when you look at like what Trollord's doing, and we should talk about Trollord a little later because they've launched their backer kit for their print warehouse. We'll talk about that in a bit. But when you look at when you look at all these different game companies that have all wrestled with the exact same issues every company wrestles with: inventory management, storage. I was very close to a lot of the principals at FASA in the 90s, and come on, everybody remembers Renegade Legion, the Renegade Legion line, and there was Centurion and Interceptor and Leviathan and so on and so forth. And it just got to the point where we can't sell this. Like, it's not selling at all. It's not going anywhere. And what was the name? It was Frog. It wasn't Frog God. It wasn't New Frog God. It was Frog something. It was the guy from Texas who bought it all and filled his garage with Renegade Legion. He passed away a few years ago.
Oh dear.
But he took over Renegade Legion. Sorry, and nicest guy, but he bought it all and stuffed it in his garage and started selling it out of his garage, and it never went anywhere. It never, it was dying for a reason. But FASA took one look at everything and said, "That's it. It's got to go," and dumped the inventory.
You know where Renegade Legion is owned?
I'm sorry. Now? It was Crunchy Frog Enterprises.
Crunchy Frog,
Paul
yes.
Lindbergh. That's who it was.
Crunchy
Frog.
Paul Lindbergh
sold it to NECA.
Right.
Oh, NECA. Well, NECA worked her way into our conversation again. James posted something, and he's true. Comics are razor within profits. They really are. That nobody in the comic industry, even Marvel and DC, aren't making a lot of money right now. And I'll tell you, and I can say this: Diamond has had a horrible reputation, Jim, for what, 30 years?
Oh, easy.
Because
So Diamond, I know a lot about Diamond. I know a lot about Diamond in the 90s because of circumstances, but this is what I would say. So my data on Diamond is older and out of date. But at the time, for the better part of 2 decades, Diamond had figured out that the average comic book store's lifespan in the United States, the average store, was 1.5 years. It took about 1.5 years, and then they would go out of business. And that was 95% of the field, that the rest would continue to percolate on. And so every large metropolitan area has some comic book store that's held on. Like in St. Louis, it was I can't think of the chain, but there's I used to go to Comic World in Huntington, West Virginia. I was her third customer, and she's still in business. But these stores hang on. But the others, the like pop-up stores that are, we're going to take all your business and we're going to undercut you and we're out of business and where did all of our money go? Those people are legion. And they really, 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 Diamond preyed on that. They would never let anybody off COD terms because they knew that the first time they did, the check wouldn't cash. So to get new product, you had to write a check as soon as the UPS guy showed up, and you had to have those checks ready. Better yet, if it was credit cards, but then they would charge you back the percentage for the transaction fee with the credit card companies. Diamond was always predatory. Diamond was always
so the little city I live in. So a little bit of history backstory. In the 90s, they had the comic boom, which was an artificial boom. It was basically instigated by collectors and speculators mostly. And everybody had to have 10 number 1 issues. Death of Superman came out. Everybody had to buy 16 issues. Spider-Man number 1 came out that sold 1.5 million copies by Todd McFarlane. So what Diamond did was they encouraged this speculation. I knew, so there was 5 stores in my little city. I knew a couple of guys that ran 2 of the stores. And they were basically profiting off this speculation because when the main store would sell out, people would run to these small stores and buy out all the issues that they had. And they were kind of, they were a little lower on the totem pole. But Diamond would approach these people and say, look, you need to up your Valiant. Like Valiant was huge.
Valiant, yep.
Valiant Comics was huge because it was a small print run comic. The first few issues were very small print run, and they blew up in value. Now, as it went on, the print runs went up, and it wasn't worth as much. However, they didn't stop the speculators. They were still buying 5, 6, 10 issues of every comic. So they would go to these guys, and they would say, look, you guys need to be buying 25 copies of every Valiant. It's only going to go. They were pitching the collectability of something that anybody could tell you that nobody cared about Valiant. To this, here we are 30 years later, nobody cares about early Valiant unless you had the first 4 or 5 issues, which were legitimately hard to get. And this was something that Diamond did with all these stores. It was a pump and dump scheme, Jim. Basically, we want you to buy all these comics, and they buy them all. Then the comic store would run out of money, and they'd say, "Okay, we'll see you later." And then the company would, and then they'd be stuck. I remember going to the back of a store that was down the street from my house right when the market started crashing, because it went real quick. It built up after 3 or 4 years, but then when it went down, it went down. And they had a case of comics, which I guess is 100 comics, Valiant titles, 10 cents a case, Jim.
Yep.
They were just to get it out of there. And the owner told me whatever's left after the weekend is going in the dumpster.
Yep.
And you know what? If you bought those, that's still a terrible deal 30 years later. You're probably stuck with those crappy Valiant comics that you bought for 10 cents a case, and it's been taking up space for 30 years. So that is what Diamond was basically a pump and dump back then, during the public speculation.
So let's talk about Troll Lord. So Troll Lord, I've talked on this show ever since I've been on this show. I've talked about how I have a tremendous amount of respect for the Chenaults and what Troll Lord has done.
Yep.
And so if you aren't familiar, Troll Lord Games began looking at doing their own self-publishing and their own printing a number of years ago. They invested in the equipment to do it. Before COVID, they were already making all those moves. And then as COVID started to become a thing, Steve filled their warehouses to the gunnel with all the supplies and bought every scrap of paper he could. And it's how they've managed to stay ahead of expenses and so on and so forth. So if you've been living under a rock, they launched on BackerKit today, I think, their crowdfunding campaign for their printing plant. They have a piece of property they bought. They're going to build a brand new building. They're going to fill it with printing equipment. And they're not going to just print for themselves, but they're going to print for the RPG industry as a whole for North America. And so this resolves a number of problems that like the tariffs pointed out, which is you chased all the cheap stuff offshore, and then now you're struggling with that. And so this is it's a bold play, Cotton. We'll see how it plays. Well, it's a bold move, Cotton. We'll see how it plays out. But I'm not worried. I think this is a smart move for them. Number one, it lowers their price. Ty mentioned vertical integration. The dream in every company is to control every single aspect of your vertical silo. And so Ty mentioned Games Workshop, so I'll talk to it very briefly. If you look at the Games Workshop hobby, right, just Warhammer 40,000. Games Workshop makes the game. They make the miniatures. They make the paints. They sell you the brushes. They sell you the glue. They sell you the primer. They sell you every aspect of the hobby, all the complete vertical integration of the hobby. Yes, they've made the paints with a contracted paint company. Yes, the brushes are brushes from a different company, but with Citadel on them and 15% more. The miniature cases, we used to actually use a tackle box company, a gun case company, to make the cases that Workshop sold, and then they made enough volume that they could make their own, but now they do it in fits and spurts. They don't do it every year. They do a new batch, then they do another batch, and so on. Vertical integration is hard. Vertical integration is very hard, but if you can make it work, it lowers your cost tremendously. So I've mentioned it before. You have to learn everything along the way. So Games Workshop was founded by Ian Livingston and I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Steve Jackson.
Steve Jackson. But then a guy named Brian Ansell bought the company from them and began moving it in miniatures in a big way. And Brian Ansell is the guy, right? Brian Ansell was crazy, but he doesn't get enough credit because one of the first things he did was like he realized you could spend $150,000 to cut a sprue of skeleton warriors. $125,000. And that mold would last for 10 years, which meant your upfront cost was expensive. But if you sold the living shit out of that skeleton sprue, you were going to make a colossal amount of money. And they had to learn that. They always contracted paints. They subcontracted paints with suppliers, because when somebody comes to you and says, we want to sell this much paint, are you on? They're on. Brushes, it's the same way. There's some things that it makes sense for you to handle. Workshop always preferred to use certain printers because they liked what they could get. Workshop experimented with doing some terrain offshore in China and doing some printing in China, but they didn't like what was happening and they brought a lot of it back. You have to be very careful. The trolls have been meticulous about this. At every step of the way, Steve and his brother have really done an excellent job of let's grow our capacity, let's make sure it pays for itself, and let's keep going. So John Miller mentioned something. I want to talk about this. I'm going to interject right now. The tulip craze of Holland. Everybody watching this show, in my family, when you turned 18, you got a copy of the book. Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds by Charles Mackay. I plead with all of you. It's free online. You can find a copy and you should read it, because it talks about weird investment swings where people lose their damn minds and they invest in things they shouldn't invest in, and they throw sanity out the window. The greatest story that comes out of the tulip craze in Holland is the most expensive tulip bulb ever was bought by a speculator who took it home and set it down on his table and left his house. His drunk brother came home, thought it was an onion, chopped it up, and
ate it. Oh, that's great.
But if you've read Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds, it somewhat inoculates you against all of the bullshit. And there's a lot of bullshit.
Not only that, if you want to look at a modern example of this, I have two words for you, Jim. The words are Beanie Babies. Because
Funko Pops, Beanie Babies.
Remember during the heyday of Beanie Babies, when people were shooting with guns each other in parking lots because they were cutting in line to get special limited edition Beanie Babies. People lost their effing minds, Jim. They were fighting in McDonald's, fist fighting. They were fighting in lines at department stores. I mean, it was over. There were shows. My local radio station, the sports radio station, they sold time for 2 hours every Sunday to a Beanie Baby dealer. This is on a sports station because he spent that much money. He was the world's biggest Beanie Baby seller. He was based in Dallas, and he did a 2-hour show every week on the collectability of Beanie Babies. It was nuts.
So I don't tell this story very often, but what the hell? It seems like a great time to tell. So I left Gaines Workshop in 1999. My last day was December 31st, and I started over when I had moved out to Seattle. And I was trying to pick up my pieces and figure out what I was going to do. And one of the things that I did for a while is I worked at Microsoft. And during the .com .bomb bubble, I worked for I worked selling server software to internet customers. And you have to understand that I had the most Microsoft hostile area in the country. I had Northern California. So I was selling high-end server software to companies. I was working with a field sales rep, but we were essentially selling server software to the .coms during the .com era. And I had a customer, nicest guy. And I used to talk to the head of IT. I used to talk to the head of IT of Google, who laughed, who was like, we're good. And told me why they were good. And I had to write a memo that caused people at Microsoft's brains to explode. And one of the things that came up is I had this customer, unbelievably nice guy. They had a .com and they were high flying and they thought they were hot shit. And unlike most of Northern California using a Sun Oracle solution, they were a Microsoft shop. They were a Microsoft with Dell Enterprise servers. And I'm talking to the guy, and he says, and these folks, sometimes they need IT support because their SQL database server is replicating. There's just all sorts of stuff. But I'm talking to the guy one day, and he says, I'm curious, what do you think of our business model? And I said, well, I don't think about your business model. I'm not paid to think about your business model. I'm fairly certain they record the phone calls around here. It's not my place to talk about your business model. And he's laughing. He's like, no, I'm like, I can't, right? Well, now this becomes a point of pride where every week he pokes at me and asks me what I think of their business, what I think of their business, what I think of their business. So this goes on for the better part of a couple of months. And it leads into January and the Super Bowl. And if you remember, around that time, that was the Super Bowl where all the .coms bought every single second of television. So you had pets.com and so on and so forth, who all had big commercials. And so I'm talking to him, and I don't know, it's like the Friday before the Super Bowl. It's like the Tuesday or Wednesday. And he says, well, what do you think? And I said, I cannot comment on the business. Like, I get fired, but let me make a recommendation. I think there's a book you ought to read. It's called Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds by Charles Mackay. And you should get a copy, and you need to read that. And after you read that, we can have a discussion. He's like, okay. I'm like, all right. So he calls me. It was before the Super Bowl, because he calls me and says, I ordered the book. I was like, oh, okay. Like a week or so goes by. He says, I ordered the book. And then he calls me on Friday and he says, the book showed up. It's at my desk. I've got it in my hand. Holy shit, it's thick. You didn't tell me it was a big book. Like, I'm going to read it over the weekend. My wife and kids are gone, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay. I said, you do that. He's like, okay. Now, I get into work on Monday. And you should know that I had to be at work at like 7:30, 8 o'clock. And I have 9 voicemails waiting for me. And the first one is, hey, I'm at home. I've started to read the book. I just thought I'd tell you. The next message, hey, I'm like 2 chapters in. It's like a few hours later on Friday night. He's like, I'm a couple chapters in. Holy shit, this is great. And then the messages start to take a turn. Oh my God. I can't believe this, right? And then the next message is like Saturday morning at 10, and he says, I stayed up all night and I read the book. We're screwed. Our company is hosed.
Oh God.
And I'm like, now you have to understand, like, I'm listening to these voicemails, right? And I didn't even get through all of them, and the phone rings and it's him. And he's like, are you there? I'm like, hello. And he's like, I've been calling. Why haven't you answered? And I was like, dude, I just sat down and I'm playing your messages. Like, what the hell? And he says, our business model is fucked. He says, there's no way we're going to stay in business another year. Our burn rate's crazy. We're doomed. And I'm like,
wow,
what? And he goes, yeah. He says, I sold all my vested shares last night.
Oh, shit.
Right? And I'm in a panic. And I'm like,
oh my!
I did not tell you to do that. I didn't, like, I know the call's being recorded. He's like, you didn't tell me to do anything. You told me to read a book. He goes, I read the book. I cashed out. I've cashed out of everything. He says, it all sold. It's the sell orders went out through my broker. Like, it's done. I'm out. I'm going to have the big wad of cash that nobody else will. And I'm like I'm dying. And lo and behold, he was right. Their burn rate was crazy, and they were out of business in 9 months.
Dang!
Wow,
Jim, he owes you a nice bottle of scotch and a steak dinner. Hopefully, he paid off.
He called me. So you should know that my assignment there ended on May 31st, and he called me at the end of May, and he said, because I had told him, I said, I'm going to migrate to another group. And he called me and he says, I just wanted to tell you something. And I said, like, oh God, what? Please tell me you're going to order the SQL servers you promised. He's like, oh, I did. He says, but I just want to tell you something. He said, I've watched our stock start to slide. He said, I've started to watch our stock slide. And interestingly enough, it started like a week or two after the Super Bowl. And he said, And he said, but I want you to know that I got out whole. And he said, and because I got out whole, he said, the rest of the stock I have, all the other shares, all the options are worthless. But because I sold when I sold, he said, I actually have enough cash in the bank to pay off my house, to pay for both of my kids or 3 kids or however many kids college. You know, we're set and I can find another job. And he says, and you didn't tell me to do this. He goes, but I read that book, and that book made me realize we were in the middle of a bubble and it couldn't possibly last. And when I started looking under the hood, I realized how bad it really was. And so I didn't say the name of the company. I still shouldn't say the name of the company. But every crazy story, it's 25 years later, 23 years later. And I still think about that, right? And all this, if it seems too good to be true, it is. If you have a flooring deal with Diamond where they can just keep your inventory in this wonderful place, and they're going to write you a check when something sells and you don't have any inventory flooring costs, that deal is too good. That deal is something that should make the hackles on your neck rise up and go, I'm making mistakes. If you're not paying for a warehouse space, if you're not paying for inventorying somewhere, there's a bill that's going to come due. You just don't know what that bill is going to be. And Diamond, even Diamond before they were bought out by Ad Nauseam or whatever their name is, I really, really, really root for people to understand the easy path is always the bad path. The hard path is always the tough one. And it's always the better path. Troll Lord grew slowly. Troll Lord spent 25 years going from 2 guys at a table at Gen Con in 2000 to where they are. And they've had problems along the way. Gail losing her mind after Gary died and telling them to burn all the product and you can't have it anymore.
By the way, Gil's house is for sale. We can talk about that a little later too, Eric. Did you say
Oh,
that?
yeah.
So I'm sorry I'm long-winded, but anytime this book comes up, this is the importance of why everybody should read that book. Not everything is a bubble. Not everything is a bubble. But there are signs that should warn you when something is a bubble. And frankly, you got to pay attention to that, right?
I'll tell you what, Jim, you are absolutely right. I've read the book because when I was in college, I took exactly 2 business classes. I took an economics class and a marketing class. And both
which is more than most people in the gaming industry.
You know, I just wanted to learn something about money because they don't teach about money in high school. And I wanted to learn something. So I took both of them. And both teachers, the first day of class, said, you need to read this book. And I had never heard that. This is in the 80s. Never heard of the book before then. And they said, you need to read this book. This book is if you want to be a marketing major, which I didn't, or an economic major, which I didn't, they said, you really need to read the book. I was like, oh, I'll read it. Sounds cool. And it was absolutely fascinating. And I was able, as the years went on, it allows you to pick out these things as they're happening. Like I said, the baseball card market went through the same thing. The comic speculation market. I'm in the middle of it, and I know exactly what's happening.
That's right.
This is overstimulated market. This market it's not going to hold up. The baseball card market was insane at one point too. It was ridiculous.
My grandfather gave my dad and my 3 uncles a copy of the book the night they graduated high school. And when I turned 18, my dad gave me my copy. I went to go visit him shortly after I turned 18, and he gave me my copy then. I gave a copy to my kid when he turned 18. I really there are a few books that I would say everybody ought to read at least once, but this is absolutely one of them.
What year did this come out, Jim? This book was first published? It's an old book.
17.
Yeah, but what's interesting about it is that it's kind of like Shakespeare. You read a Shakespeare play, and the stuff that's in a Shakespeare play, he was, whether he was a real person or not, whether it was one guy, whatever, he had an absolute laser eye on human behavior.
1841.
1841. So Shakespeare stuff, if you read it now, you will be shocked at how much he laser pointed into human behavior. And this is the people have been acting like this for 500 years, nothing new under the sun. That's what's so cool about this book. You read it, and it could have been written 30 years ago because the truths are universal, has universal truths in it.
Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds by Charles Mackay. And so, if there is a foundation for this show to be built upon, that book is one of the bricks that absolutely governs all of us.
Yeah, there's a link in the chat above, folks.
Yeah.
By the way, read Machiavelli's The Prince also.
John,
if you want to know why the world is
the Internet Archive edition was published in 1932, based upon the second edition, which was 1852. But I guess the first edition was 1841.
Yep.
Or so. So yeah, it's a classic.
It's a life changer. It's a life changer because you will never ever see this stuff. It's why I have Funkos in such contempt. Oh look, the bubble continues to expand as their spare bedrooms fill with the plastic.
There's always something. There's always something. There's always an overstimulated market out there. There's always people willing to speculate and pay too much. And I said in the chat, and this is something that we used to talk about around I worked at comic convention probably once a month from like 90 through about 96. And after that, I'd worked 2 or 3 a year until just a few years ago. It got too much carrying those long boxes around. But we always had something, the dealers that I knew, we'd talk about, we'd laugh. We call it the last idiot theory. And the last idiot theory was whoever gets stuck with this junk is the last idiot. You'd have a long box of 300 issues of Spider-Man #1 that are still in the poly bag that there was 1.5 million printed, the highest printed comic of all time. And you would inevitably find an idiot because you'd be saying, what am I going to do with these? These are never going to be worth enough because there's so many printed. Yes, they're worth $10 a piece now, but if I don't sell them all now, I'm going to be stuck with these in 2 or 3 years. You look for the last idiot. The last idiot was the guy that got the deal and then realized he had no way of selling them. He was not going to make his money back. And so we would always say last idiot theory. And you'd have a box of your Valiant comics. And so I'd say, how much for the whole box? $30. I'll take it. And you'd be like, yes, that guy's going to be the last idiot because that box is not worth $30 of comics. And so it's the same. Look, it just continues to happen year after year. And one of the great things I think about the OSR, which is, we're all OSR supporters, is there's nothing in the OSR that's overprinted to the point that you'll have to worry about any overstimulation of the OSR market. If you like to collect OSR stuff, thumbs up. It's going to be awesome. It's a great idea. I think that it'll pay off in the long run. And there's another thing that people say. Never collect something you don't personally enjoy, because if you're going to be stuck with something, and so many people bought Beanie Babies and they didn't like Beanie Babies, and they're stuck with 1 million freaking Beanie Babies. Like oh my God, I hate this. If you collect OSR stuff and you love the OSR, you'll never be disappointed. Because what's the worst that's going to be happening? The worst that's going to be happening is you're going to have a kick-ass shelf of OSR stuff. And some of it will be worth something someday.
When you buy to speculate, the odds are you're going to be screwed in the end.
You got to know what you're doing. You've got to know exactly what you're doing and what you're getting to. And you can't drink the Kool-Aid.
Here's another axiom. I often say this at the auction podium, folks. Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. And if you don't understand that, I can't help you. I just can't. So we're 12 minutes into the second hour. We've talked a lot about Diamond. I've told Uncle Jim's weird story time, and I'm sorry for that, but it's
great. This is all pertinent things to the world right now.
Yes, and pertinent. Jesus, the book is free, folks. You can find it at Project Gutenberg.
It's in the Gutenberg,
archive.org. There's no shortage of places. You should all get this book and read it, because once you do, you will look around your house and go, I don't know why I have all those mint condition 5th edition books, because the truth of the matter is they printed hundreds of thousands of them. Right. It isn't going to work. It isn't going to work.
I'm going to go out and get some more Spelljammer box sets.
The only collectible popcorn bucket that I have ever purchased is, of course, the Dune one, because I've waited my entire life for a sandworm bucket.
There you go.
And just because other people are hooking it up to other things.
I've got the D&D one here somewhere. And by the way, thank you, Kim. Kim, the Peppermint Pixie, got me one because my place ran out immediately. But I got I got a really nice dragon dice bucket or whatever the hell it is.
Wow.
Popcorn bucket.
You're
It's
so
very
cool. I wish I was that cool. So
How many
let's
you have?
talk. What else are we going to talk about? I do want to talk about Gen Con. It's coming, but
Real quick. I saw that Gail Gygax's house is for sale. I kind of zipped by it. Did you see what she wants for it?
No, I didn't. I just looked at it. Went, oh, okay. I didn't see how much she was asking for.
Oh boy, how much you want to bet? Nah, I'm not. You know what? I won't even speculate on that. I don't know. I bet you, I'm going to bet you it's overvalued though. I want to bet you because it's a place where Gary lived, and so it's going to be overvalued. Hopefully, not as much as the Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum.
I can't remember. Did Gary pass away at home, or did he pass away in a hospital?
I thought it was sudden, and he did not go to the hospital, but I could be wrong, Jim. I don't think he made it to a hospital. I think he just passed away at home. But I'm sorry, I don't know. And I really,
I don't need a house in Lake Geneva. I'm not looking to buy a house in Lake Geneva. I wish her all the best. Yeah. So let's I know what we should talk about. Let's talk about Cosmo Joe.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, definitely. Absolutely.
Let's talk about Cosmo Joe. And let me start by saying I did not know him the way a lot of other people did. I had heard nothing but nice things about him from a number of people who I trust and I think are good judges of character. I am sorry that I will never get a chance to know Cosmo Joe the way friends of mine knew Cosmo Joe. His death is a tragedy. I'm going to tangent real quick and say that I used to be one of those people that used to go for a walk every night in the evening with two friends of mine when we were growing up. You know, we were high school kids over the summer, and we would go for long walks at night and talk about the stuff that teenage boys talk about, mostly girls, and television and firearms. And we would talk about this stuff as we were walking along. And one of my friends, Mike, his dad was, I've talked about him before, he was an FBI agent, nicest guy in the world. And finally one night, one day he's like, you guys got to think about where you're walking in the dark. You got to think about, because we lived, again, I've made no secret of it, we lived in Eastern Kentucky, and one of the routes that we took carried us along a very, very, very busy main arterial with coal trucks and everything else. And his point is that it only takes one guy slightly coming over on the sidewalk, and he's going to clip one of you and you could be hurt. Cosmo Joe was in an accident where somebody on an e-scooter, one of those rental scooters, pegged him at speed. And they both went down and they both hit their heads and they were both unconscious. And that's a tragedy. Like, all of this is just a tragedy. I would say, please be cognizant of when you're out after dark. Even if he had his reflective vest on, and I know that he frequently wore a vest, I've heard this from people. It doesn't stop somebody who's not paying attention, who's looking at their phone when they're driving a car, or looking at something else when they're on their rental scooter. It's all tragedy. And we're out somebody who clearly was responsible for good things in the gaming community nationally, as well as in Wisconsin proper. I know he helped found Phoenix Con, and I hate eulogies for people who went too early. There's nothing more poignant. There's nothing harder. And I've watched a lot of people over the last few days struggle with how to express this Cosmo Joe sized hole in their life. And I feel terrible about that. And I feel terrible for them. And I mourn a man I didn't know very well, but who obviously had a big impact on a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll tell you, this is really, man, this is so, he's in his 40s, which is tragic enough, because I'm at 62, and I don't think, there's a phenomenon when you get older, you don't think you're old anymore. 62, that's young because I'm 62, and but I'm going to tell you something, 48 is young. It really is. And it's basically right on the edge of middle age at this point. And the fact it was such a sudden thing, we've gotten to where look, in our hobby, we've had Jim Ward. Jim Ward was sick about 10 years. I mean, he was sick a long time. We knew it was coming for a long time. A lot of these other people, we knew that they're not doing well. You had your chance to say goodbye. Everybody had a chance to thank them for their service in gaming. When something like this happens, it's an absolute tragedy because they're there and then they're not. And you just one of my good friends, Mike Carey, who was at the First North Texas, really very good friend of mine, 10 years younger than me. And one day his best friend calls me and says, Mike died, he's dead. And I'm like, how? He had a heart attack. He was a young guy. It was absolutely something that could have never been found. It was a heart issue, something wrong with his heart. But when you're in your 40s, you don't have heart examinations if you don't have a history. And it was just so shocking and sudden and awful because I never got to say goodbye, never got to tell him how much he meant to me and the con. I mean, just all those things go through your head. And so, it really sucks because here we'll be going to EggCon next week, and he was going to be one of the special guests at EggCon. And everything, I knew him in passing. And like Jim says, I said hi to him a couple times. I didn't really, I would never say I knew the man because I didn't. I just knew him in passing. But I have not seen one ill word about this guy. Not a one. As a matter of fact, it's been the opposite. Yeah. I have just seen praise after praise what a nice guy is. It just sucks when our hobby loses a guy like this. It really, really does. And so I don't even know I wouldn't even know what to say to his friends because, like I said, I wasn't that close a friend except that, just think about the good times. And apparently there was a lot of good times with Cosmo Joe, with Andy. I'm looking at the stories people are telling about him. He was a fun guy. People had a great time with him. Man, I just don't know what to say. Like I said, it's just these sudden things that happen like this, and that it's just a tragedy because was it preventable? I don't know. Does it matter? No. It's just something that happens. People die in car wrecks every day and crossing the street and they get hit by, an e-bike or whatever. It's just awful. And I feel so bad for his family and friends and people that worked with him because once again, nobody had time to say goodbye. And that's what really sucks. Right. I believe he was put in a coma almost immediately after the accident because that is a way for the brain to heal itself.
He was in a chemically induced coma, and from what I understand, the impact. And again, if you're over the age of 8, and you fall and hit your head on concrete, you're going to have bigger and bigger issues the older and older you are. Mm-hmm. But he had cerebral swelling, and coming back from that is a miserable, awful experience. And I guess what you say now is, this is another brutal reminder to just tell the people that you love them. Tell the people that that are your friends how much their friendship means to you. I have a good friend that I talk to almost every day, and we've been friends since 1993. I have a close circle of friends. Mike's in this circle, Eric's in this circle, but I've known Dustin since 1993. I've been on the roller coaster ride of his first marriage and divorce and his second marriage. And he's one of my closest friends. And he lost his dad a year before I lost mine. His dad, heart attack, and was dead before he hit the floor. My dad, slow, awful death, wouldn't wish it on anybody. Both sides of the coin. And one of the things that we talked about, because it just sort of pointed, you have these conversations, right, is that I said to him, and it comes up now and then, right? But if something happens, right? If the sweet meteor of death finally hits me, or the kid in the Camaro pegs me at the crosswalk, or I have a stroke or whatever, I will not get a chance to say goodbye. But you already know how important you are in my life and how much you mean to me. And so it can go unsaid. Just remember that. And I would say to have those conversations with the people that are important to you, because it takes away the guilt of I didn't have that conversation, right? You just wipe that away. and you've just said, listen, you mean this much to me. You mean more to me than anybody else. You're a great friend. You're a close friend. You're my brother from another mother. You're the sister I never wanted, whatever it is. Have those conversations with people so that if something happens to one of you, you don't, the survivor is not left with lingering doubt or guilt or I wish I had said something else. And when you reach that Zen-like equilibrium with your friend, I've made it a point since my dad died to do that with almost all of my friends that are so important to me. When I see them, I tell them how much they mean to me. When I see them, I tell them they're friends of mine by choice. Nobody forced me to be their friend. Maybe somebody forced them to make me their friend. I don't know. But take the time and have those moments, because Cosmo Joe gone.
Yep.
And he'll never be back. And that's a tragedy. But take a tragedy and try to do something with it in a positive way.
This is why Eric and I think Jim's jumped on this train too. When you go to a convention, find your heroes, tell them how much they mean to you. Tell them that, man, I was really inspired by this when I was a kid. I went through Ghost Tower of Inverness, Mr. Hammock, and it was, well, don't call him Mr. Hammock, call him Alan.
Yeah.
And don't give him a highfalutin view of himself. And say, Alan, man, it was great. I am so great. This Ghost Tower was awesome, man. We played it as kids. I mean, you got to do this because none of these guys, no one here gets out alive, and these guys are dropping. They're just getting older. It's just, this year we had Dennis Sestera came to the con. He missed the last couple of cons. He's 85 years old now. And he came to the very first North Texas, which was, 17 years ago. And he looks older, obviously, and he's moving slower. But, man, I made sure to get him and tell him that I was so glad he came, and that it just seems like yesterday it was our first year and this and that. And I tried to spend some special time with Dennis because, damn it, we're going to miss him when he goes. And he is just such a special guy, such a nice guy, a funny guy, a smart guy. And I've enjoyed talking to him over the years. He's been a Three Castle judge for, I think, the last 10 years because he's so good at it. I mean, his criticisms are absolutely on target when he sends me the judgments, and he's just a great guy. And so I made sure, because I don't know if he'll be back. He hasn't made the last two, and he's, like I said, he's 85. He's by far the oldest guest. He may be the oldest guy that comes to our con, period. And I just didn't want him not to know how much he meant to me and the con. And as a matter of fact, this year, next 2026 will be the 50th anniversary of Bunnies and Burros. Gary and I have some very special plans for next year.
I'm not wearing a rabbit suit.
Jim, damn it.
And if you can get the serving girls in the funny costumes, I'll pay extra. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying maybe we have something on the same wavelength there. Let's just say the Devilettes might not be Devilettes next year. Wink. So
anyway,
but we're going to have a big to do, and I really, really hope Dennis can make it because he and Dr. Robinson created something that's unique and fun and cool, and I they deserve to be.
I might even play it. Stop.
Oh, and so we're going to have a cake. We're going to have all kinds of stuff going on, but I hope he can make it. Like I said, he's one guy I'm just really going to miss him when he's not around. And the reality is, we're none of us are getting younger. There's more time in back of us than in front of us. And so definitely, yes, Jim is right. Tell these guys how much they mean to you. Tell the creators how much their creations meant to you. Believe me, they never – I asked Darlene about this once. I said, do you ever get tired of people? Well, she's like, no, I never do. She loves it when people tell her they love her art.
It depends on what – I mean, you have to flip the coin with Darlene because sometimes there's sweet Darlene and sometimes there's spiky Darlene, and you don't know which one you're going to get until you open the can.
She could be spicy. Oh, she could be spicy. I've heard her, Jim and I have heard her say the F word.
The first time I met her, I was like, why does Darlene hate me? I didn't like what the hell? And it was just bad. It was a
Jim and I have heard her say the F word. It has crossed her lips.
She swears and she realizes she swears, and then she's like, she makes a face, and you're like, lady, everybody farts.
She is never. I mean, every time somebody comes up to her table, she's gracious and she enjoys people remembering her. And look, you think that lady is so tired of talking about the Greyhawk map? She's not. She will sit there and talk about the Greyhawk map as long as you want to talk about the Greyhawk map. And so, yes, don't let this. Oh, I don't want to go up to this guy, and he's gonna.
Oh my
No,
God!
no,
Grow
no.
a pair and go talk to him.
Go
You big
talk to him.
pusses. So I have a morbid joke. I have a really funny joke.
Oh boy.
So I don't know if I've talked about this or not, but I will. My mother-in-law was in a horrific farm accident 47 years ago. And by horrific, I mean an auger overturned and she was crushed under the auger. And my wife and twin sister were sent to the end of the lane to the road to wave down the ambulance that my father-in-law called. And they pretty much did not expect her to make it. And when the ambulance showed up, they had to have everything ready. And then my father-in-law had to get the tractor and use the backhoe to lift the auger. They had to pull her onto the ambulance and then take her to the hospital. And so her entire pelvis was shattered and she was months in the hospital trying to recover and so on. And at one point, of course, German Lutherans, the minister comes to visit and is just, very serious and very dour and whatnot. And essentially is like, we didn't think you were going to make it. And we're really glad that things have turned around and blah, 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 blah. And then he leaves. And my father-in-law is sitting there and she's, of course, in bed and has been months in bed and is going to still be. And she goes, was I about to die and nobody told me? And he says, well, let me put it this way. I just took the backhoe off of the tractor for digging her grave.
Oh man.
And
wow.
I think that's the best ag joke I've heard. Like he was really straight and just was like, well, I did just take the backhoe off the tractor. And you're just like, oh my God.
Jeez.
Right? Yes, but these are farmers. Go figure. So I just,
farmer humor can be dour.
Yes, very dour. I plead with all of you. Some of us squabble. Some of us squabble here and there, but really and truly, everybody watching this, you're valuable. You are loved by somebody. You should tell the people that you love and who are important to you that they're important. Don't squander the opportunity. I was at lunch today and there were two grandparents with a little 6-year-old boy, their grandson, having lunch. And this really reminded me of when I was a kid growing up and my grandparents would take me somewhere or lunch. So we ended up talking. And I said to the little boy, we ended up talking about books and what do you like to read and all the rest of it. And at the end of it, I said, let me ask you something, buddy. I said, you got to tell your grandma and grandpa how much you love them and give them a hug every chance you get. And he goes, well, why would I do that? And I said, because you're banking that for the day you no longer can. And it's the same thing. Tell your friends how important they are, because eventually there's going to be a day where you either can't or they can't say it to you.
I would like to say here publicly if I don't say this enough, that look, everybody that attends North Texas, I really appreciate you, and I don't get to say hi to everybody every year, but man, you guys mean so much to me, and especially these two guys here, Eric and Jim. I mean, attending North Texas and just supporting the con for the last 17 years, it has meant so much to me, particularly after Doug passed away, and I know Gary feels the same way. That hit us like an absolute kick to the solar plexus. And I'm not going to say there wasn't a time we never thought we weren't going to do this. We never said, well, we're going to hang it up after this. It was never even a question, because we said we can't let down the fans. There are so many people that come here every year that have a great time, that love to be here, that there's no way we're not going to have this. And we never even had an idea that we wouldn't have. And that's because everybody that comes to the con, we just love you guys. I mean, just really, for 99.9% of you, yes, there's a 0.1% that probably we'd like to
enough beer we can get through it.
Maybe 99.5, because I forgot. There's a few that I'm like, yeah, you don't have to come back. But the rest of them, no. It's great running the con and being able to see these guys every year. And so, if I don't say that enough, Gary and I, we really appreciate you guys so much coming to the con every year. Everybody here that comes to the con, everybody that talks about it, even if you haven't been to it. I'm telling you, if you haven't been to it, you need to come because you're going to love it. And so yeah, I mean, I'm just going to I'm just going to put that out there. That thank you so much, and we really love you guys coming every year. We especially like the people like Jim and Eric. That Eric's been since year 5, I believe, right? Your first year.
2014.
So yeah, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, year 5.
Yeah,
even since year 5. That's amazing. We finally got Jim a little late in the game, but he's been there 3 times, 4 times now, and so a lot of people here. We finally got Kim to come. We got Fugly to come. We got it's great to see you guys, and we got Ty to come, and I don't know, just thanks for everybody. We really just appreciate you guys coming every year and supporting the con, and we could feel the love. Let's put it that way. Gary and I really feel the love.
So what else do we have to talk about? We've talked about Diamond ad nauseum. We've talked about popular delusions and the madness of crowds. We've talked about Joe. What other shenanigans has the RPG industry been up to this week?
We can't talk about Superman yet because my granddaughter and I are going to see it tomorrow. So no spoilers. I have been avoiding spoilers the past week. It's been awful.
I'm surprised because initial reviews seemed negative. Then I saw a bunch of positive.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to tell you some. If you want to hear some good things, I'm going to tell you some good things based on numbers. The opening weekend, they made $215 million. The movie only cost $250 million. That's how you make your money back, because the last 2 Marvel movies, their opening weekends were $78 million and $88 million, and they topped out at $400 million. This is Thunderbolts and Captain America: Brave New World or whatever. They did not make their money back. Even though they made $400 million, they are considered failures. Superman is clocking pretty damn good. It looks like it's gonna have to make probably $500 million to make money, $500 million, but it's already halfway there. So that it looks like that this is going to be good for the superhero industry instead of the garbage we've seen the last few years. It's just kind of like, it's just kind of tepidly thrown out there. And hope you guys like this. And like I said, opening weekend at $80 million just doesn't do it anymore. You have to really blow out.
Listen, I haven't seen the movie. I've seen a number of online reviews, and it seems to me, I bought comic books starting in the 70s. That if you are somebody who appreciated Silver Age Superman, this is going to be a movie for you. If you want Superman where there's really he is invincible and invulnerable and will never fail, then you're going to probably come up short in your expectations. Your classics, apparently. It hit those classics.
Well, one of the things that's great about James Gunn. I don't like everything James Gunn does. I don't like everything he says. He had some weird things a few years ago when he was making pedo jokes on Twitter, and he got kicked off of a movie set. But he actually reads comics and actually knows comics and knows characters, and he understands what makes comics work. And if you want to look at what's going wrong with the MCU right now, it's the same thing that's going wrong with WotC. You got a bunch of people in MCU that have not read comics, don't understand comics, don't know characters. They don't know a thing. And they're trying to put together movies based on what they think people will like. And that's kind of reminds me of a company called WotC that has a lot of people there that really don't play games, but we think you might like this, and we're going to throw it out there. And one thing about James Gunn is he's been put in charge of DC Universe, and he knows comics. He knows his comics, and he reads comics, and that's the kind of guy you want. And what sucks is the MCUs used to have those people before the first or second wave, whatever. All the way up to Endgame, those were guys that loved comics, read comics, knows comics. The whole plot line, the whole Thanos plot line was a Jim Starlin plot line that he had for Captain Marvel and Warlock comic series back in the 70s, which was great. So they were very conversant with classic comics, and they knew what was good and what would work. The guys they got now, I don't know if they can get their breakfast right, because they don't seem to have any kind of handle on what people want with movies, comic book movies. But I think DC is in good hands with Gunn. I think this from what I'm hearing. I think I'm not going to overrate it in my mind. I'm just going to be happy with whatever I get. I think I'm going to be happy tomorrow. I think it's going to be.
I want to see Superman. I just want to see it for Guy Gardner. Okay, I mean,
Nathan Fillion's
Nathan Fillion is one of the few people who I think can pull off the character without you hating.
By the way, a guy that loves comics too. Fillion is a huge comic dude, and that's awesome. He got the part because he really wanted the part, and so that.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm stopping you there. So let me give you. So I have a theory. I have a theory that there are actors and actresses who walk among us, who are death to a television show when they get on it. And so my old example from the 90s was Kelly Rutherford. Kelly Rutherford, as soon as she would appear on a show, the pin was pulled, the nosedive began, and there was no way that you were getting out of that crash dive.
Ouch.
How many people remember The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr.?
Great show.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Kelly Rutherford.
Oh, no. I forgot about that.
Perhaps you remember Melrose Place.
No, good soapy.
Kelly
soapy.
Rutherford.
Oh.
So I'm sorry. I'm going to have to look. So give me just a second. So
who do we? Do we have some box office
shows that?
Do we have box office poison in Superman? Is that what you're trying to tell us?
No. So Kelly Rutherford, who is strangely enough from Kentucky, which I was unaware of. But let's go through the long list. She killed the show Generations from 1989 to 1991. She was on Davis Rules. It lasted a year. She was on Homefront. It lasted a year. She was on Bodies of Evidence. It lasted 6 months. She was on the TV version of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures. It didn't make it a year. She was on Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. She killed it. She was on 2 shows in 1995, The Great Defender in the Courthouse. Here's my personal favorite. She was on Kindred the Embraced. Aaron Spelling's Vampire the Masquerade show.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that. And I hate
she was on Melrose Place. The list goes on, but please accept that this woman is death to a television show. My problem is that there is only one of these people in the universe at a time when they're active. I believe that Nathan Fillion is our new.
No, you're wrong. He was in Castle.
Castle
lasted 7 seasons.
I love that your bitter tears, your salty tears, are so warm and refreshing as they cascade over my body. I will begin the body of evidence, but hold on a second. So let's talk about Nathan.
When you get to Castle, you fail because it's a 7-season long show.
No, but he's had his ups and downs. But let's look at the long list. Ordeal in the Arctic, One Life to Live, Spin City, Maggie Winters, Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place, depending on what year it was.
Which was actually a funny show, but yeah.
Okay, there's a long list of Nathan Fillion. The graveyard that Nathan Fillion has
Firefly,
is there.
Well, but Firefly got killed by Fox. I mean,
no. Everybody always says that, and yes, Firefly. They show the episodes initially out of order, but I'm sorry if the Browncoat Nation had shown up on Friday night and watched the damn show, it would have still been on the air.
Ty, I just looked it up. The Rookie is renewed for season 8.
Yes, so okay. I'm going to give you the first half of his career, Jim. But the last, since 2009, he was in Castle, high-rated show for 7 years.
Yes,
he took a year off. He's been in The Rookie for 9 years. And
again, ensemble cast, and they're managing to dodge the curse. But Nathan Fillion's curse is coming out. Trust me, something's going to happen.
You can't say that after 7 and 9 years.
I'm just telling you that. I'm telling you, like, if he managed to shake the curse, that's great. But I have concerns. I have Kelly Rutherford concerns.
I think I win this case in court, Ty. Yeah, we're going to have a court case. We're going to have to present this in North Texas court.
Yeah, but again, look at Castle, right? They jumped the shark. They
Oh, it
killed the
jumped.
show.
It shark jumped. Yeah.
They shark jumped and killed the show. And the rookie, Jesus Christ, he's not the rookie after 7 years.
But Jim, every show that's a rom-com thriller is going to jump the shark eventually, because when they consummate the relationship, the show's done.
Nobody
I
learned
knew-
anything from Northern Exposure.
Or
No one
more
learned
writing,
anything.
or
No,
any of
you
that
can't.
stuff.
You never consummate the relationship, because if you do, it's done.
That's
Dunzo. It's over. Shark jumped.
There should always be a pane of glass between the beloveds.
Yes. So,
It-
by the
it
way,
will
so
never-
I have my personal actress that when I see this person, somebody, I want to load my gun and put it to my head and pray for sweet oblivion. And I don't think you could guess who this is, but I'm going to tell you who this is. And because I don't get the hype, I don't get it. Zendaya.
Yeah, I don't
I
understand the appeal.
don't get it.
She has
And when I
one
see her in a
expression.
show, I'm like, dear God,
She has one expression.
dear
and-
God.
but you know what? I worked with someone who loved her, who thought she was amazing, and I said,
What does she do well? She doesn't do anything well except play moody one, like you said, the one expression, moody. Oh, she almost killed Dune for me. But I was able to work my way past it. And she almost killed Spider-Man for me, because I'm sorry, she's not Mary Jane. That is the worst Mary Jane.
I'm not even getting into that. So I'm afraid that with the Zendaya casting as Mary Jane, I'm afraid that I'm not going to use the jump the shark reference. Are you ready? I'm going deep.
Uh-oh.
I think this is when they mirthed it, because we all remember Mirth's birth on Mork and Mindy, where suddenly,
Jonathan Winters.
for whatever
no.
reason, Pam Dalber
No.
and Robin Williams now have, what was his name? It was just on the tip of my tongue. God, what was his name?
Jonathan Winters.
Jonathan Winters.
Yeah.
Suddenly, Jonathan Winters is their kid. If there was ever a reason to turn television off, that was it.
It was
right?
because Robin Williams loved Jonathan Winters, and at the time the show was a huge hit, and they would do whatever Robin Williams wanted, and he said he wanted Jonathan Winters on the show, and they tried to work him in, and God bless him, it was over.
It was a
done.
disaster. It was an
done.
unmitigated disaster.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, there's a few of those actors and actresses out there that when I see them, look, Pedro Pascal is moving to that territory. I used to like him, but I think he's getting overused, because I don't need him
Have
in
you
every
not seen the
show I
video
watch.
that came out this week where they plead with everybody to just quit casting him in every single thing, right? Like I really enjoyed that. I saw that this week where they were like, "Dear God in heaven, whatever you do," it was talking about something being adapted, and I just,
I liked him in the Mandalorian because he wore the damn helmet the whole time. I didn't have to see. I didn't even know it was Pedro Pascal for half the show, and then I was like, "Oh God, he's in something," But I'm still okay with Pedro for a while, but he needs to take it easy. He's like Liam Neeson. He doesn't need to take every single film that comes his way like Liam does. And
well,
understand
I'll tell you the
Liam-
film I wish he hadn't taken, and that's the Police Squad remake. I think it's going to be an unmitigated disaster, and I pin all of that on Seth MacFarlane. Because
you can pin a lot of things on Seth.
Seth MacFarlane is not the Zucker brothers, and I will die on that hill.
I don't know. I watched the trailer and I chuckled twice. And most comedies nowadays, I don't even crack a smile. I just sit there and
But
go,
I'll tell you what, you laughed at
this is
the
funny.
OJ reference. You laughed at
funny.
the,
That
you
was
laughed at
funny. I
the OJ
chuckled.
reference.
I chuckled.
And you probably laughed at the visual entendre they did with what's her name, Pamela Anderson, where she's putting things in and out of the oven and the neighbor sees it.
I chuckled.
Okay, there
I
were your two
chuckled.
laughs.
Yeah.
But do you remember how the end of it? It's him in like your brother's Speedo?
Okay,
And you didn't
I
laugh at
cracked a
that.
smile because I think Liam Neeson was playing against type, and I kind of like it. Look, the funniest part of Ted was when he walks in the grocery store. Liam Neeson. Have you ever seen Ted or Ted 2? That's the funniest part of the whole damn movie. Is when he walks he wants to buy tricks. And I can't even
mentions Vanessa Angel. Vanessa Angel just walked away. She literally walked away. And let's not forget that Vanessa Angel her career started in Spies Like Us with Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd, and she was one of the Russian missile operators who comes out of the tent in the underwear. I'm not saying that's indelibly etched in my brain, but it's indelibly etched in my brain.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Agent Joe. Yeah. Kingpin. Oh, yes. She was in Kingpin. Yes, she was.
Yes. And she's, yes. Enough said.
Well, I don't know. But yeah, so that Eric, who's your poison? Jim and I have given you poison. Who is your human actor's poison? That when you see him, you're just like, I can't do this.
I don't really have one, because, and honestly, I won't watch anything streaming or movies for 6 months. Then I'll binge for like 3 weeks, and then I'm just back to watching news stuff on YouTube. So I couldn't tell you, man. I really couldn't. Remember, I'm the guy who hasn't been to a movie theater since the D&D movie came out.
What the hell? My wife and I go. Look, they have Senior Tuesdays, $6 a ticket, baby. My wife and I hit Senior Tuesday.
I'm only turning 58. So,
oh, okay.
All right.
You got to be 60 to get Senior Tuesday.
And we have New York City prices.
Oh, okay. I can't turn down a $6.
I'm sorry, but New York City's a self-inflicted wound. Timeout. Back 15 yards. Whining about New York City.
No, listen.
Not allowed.
Hey, listen, I didn't move here. I was born here.
He can't leave now either. His parents are there. He can't leave.
Yeah, I got my parents.
Stuck. I know he'd probably rather be in the Poconos, him and his wife.
Oh my God.
But no, they got his parents have that house, and they're going to be there until
when I went up there
forever.
I was only supposed to be there through Monday or Tuesday, and it's like, yeah, I think we'll leave on Thursday. Yeah, it's just too good to.
And Eric, your parents are going to live to be 100, so God knows how long you're going to be stuck in New York.
They are healthy as
You're going to be stuck in New York forever.
Mike, 5 CDs, go.
Okay,
yeah.
Hold on.
I have one I want to talk about.
Everybody put surprise. I got them right here.
All right, get moving, buddy.
Switching out today. I'm glad you like this bit now, Jim. I appreciate it.
I'll tell you what. Do you want me to lead in real quick?
Well, I'll do them real quick. Well, yeah, go ahead. Why don't you go ahead?
No, do your 5. It's more important.
We have 2 returning. We have third week in a row, Vulgar Boatman, Wide Awake. It's a really good pop album. I don't know what to tell you. Never heard the Vulgar Boatman. They had 3 albums. They're all really good. Just give it a listen. The Wanderers, one album hits, guys. It was a British band. The Lord of the New Church. Stiv Bators, this is his one thing he did before Lord's New Church. Very good punk album. We have 3 new ones. Tom Verlaine was this is called Millerstown Anthology. Tom Verlaine was in a group called Television back in the late 70s. It was an avant-garde punk band. He did a lot of solo albums in the 80s that just don't in the 90s. Nobody's heard of him, but his stuff is he is a great songwriter. His stuff is really melodic, and his guitar work is incredible. A group called The Wedding Present. They were a British post-punk band, and they're real big in the 90s. This is the album George Best because they loved the soccer player George Best. They wrote a whole album about him. It's fun stuff. Steve Albini, who was a great producer, he does a lot of really loud, noisy albums. He did this, and it's a great post-punk album. And we go from least known to best known. This week, we have the third in our Elvis Costello. This is his third album, Armed Forces. I did the first 2 albums, first 2 weeks of this one. Once again, banger after banger. Accidents Will Happen. Oliver's Army. Green Shirt. Goon Squad. Did anybody, what's so funny about Peace, Love, and Understanding? Did anybody have 3 albums, like maybe the Beatles, that were this good the first 3 albums out the door? I had not listened to some Elvis Costello for years, and I am absolutely fascinated by how amazing his career began, because it's just banger after banger after banger.
The part is with almost no airplay short of possibly college radio.
Not in the 70s, no.
And
pop stations,
some big metro areas.
Good stuff. So yeah, the Elvis Costello, I'm looking forward to to going doing the next album, my Elvis Costello tour. So
So
that's my 5 albums this week.
So it would probably be around 2016. And I'm on the phone with my friend one day, and we were having the theoretical conversation of what albums would you take with you to the desert island if you could only take 5 albums. And I whip off 5, right? And I probably said, if memory serves me right, I probably said Van Halen's greatest hits, as long as it had Dance the Night Away. Probably Cars, Heartbeat City. Probably one of the Yes albums I'd have to pick. Like I had my list, but I go through the list and he goes, well, where's Dark Side of the Moon?
Uh-oh.
And I said, I don't, why Dark Side of the Moon? And he goes, well, why not? And I said, well, I've never listened to it all the way through.
Whoa.
And that's exactly his reaction. And so this is like 2015, 2016, and maybe even 2017. And he says, I'm trying to understand how a 49-year-old man has never listened to Dark Side of the Moon. And I said, well, I've heard a few of the songs from it, but and we get into a very deep discussion about this. Now, Ty, next week I will tell my Billy Ray Cyrus adjacent story just for you, but it waits for a week. So he's from my hometown. So I explained that, all the people that I knew that were, oh God, I've bored Mike to death. All the people that I knew that were really, really deep into Pink Floyd were also the people that hung out on the wrong side of the high school and smoked all of the weed. And I had not lost him at that point, but shortly after high school, I lost a friend of mine to an accident where he and his girlfriend were going way too fast on the wrong lane of a 2-lane road. And the Kentucky State Police used their blood toxicology report as an example for the next 20 odd years. And so I made a lot of associations that I probably shouldn't have. And that's unfortunate, but I let it color me on that whole swath of Pink Floyd. And he says, listen, we can't be friends if you don't listen to the album and give it a shot. I was like, okay, fine. I said, I'll listen.
They started as a psychedelic band in the 60s. And so it's really interesting. It's very, Sid Barrett was their lead singer, and he was, the dude tripped so hard, Jim. He spent the last 20 years of his life living in a cottage with his mom, totally fried out of his mind. This is back before LSD was chemical. So I mean, but then they became this band that they went from this psychedelic crazy stuff, which is, there's so much stuff interesting, to this band that did these concept albums that would just, the whole album was about one subject. So
that night, after my kid was asleep, and I can't remember. It might have actually been when my son was actually at a summer camp. I think I was alone in the house with the dog. I think I was alone in the house with the dog. And I cranked it up and I played the whole thing front to back. And I would say that if you have not read the Wikipedia article on the Dark Side of the Moon, you need to read that to have a better understanding of the album and the concepts and what it's supposed to be. And I played it once and I listened to it forward to backwards without having done any reading. And then I read the Wikipedia article and I read some online for probably about a half an hour, 45 minutes. And then I played it again. And this time I'm noticing all this stuff. And I've probably played that album every night for the next month, because I kept finding things sonically that were interesting in it and so on. But I called him the next day and I said, all right, you were right. I was wrong. and I said, and it would go to the island with me. And I still, if I'm working at night, there's a few albums that I'll play. I'll play Dark Side of the Moon. I'll play Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross's Social Network soundtrack. Robbie Robertson's very first solo album after he stepped away from the band, that has Crazy River, or Take Me Down the Crazy River. There's a lot of really interesting, but my last album I'll throw out is Explosions in the Sky. The Earth is not a cold, dead place. And I'm probably saying the title wrong, but it's really, really, really spectacular. And no, Michael, I have not queued it up to watch The Wizard of Oz and listen to it, simply because I've seen The Wizard of Oz enough. I'm good. I don't ever need to see that movie again. I'm tapped out. I'm good. All good. So,
by the way, so some people were mentioning musicians. I'm a gigantic Bowie fan. I have every album. They're not in the mix right now, but I have every single album David Bowie's ever done. He's probably my favorite musician of all time, and he's also
even Tin Machine. Even Tin Machine.
Tin Machine's not terrible. It's not great, but it's not terrible.
You're high.
No, now Tin Machine 2 sucked, but the first one's not bad. But I think he's one of the most incredibly talented musicians of the 20th century.
Totally.
He's absolutely great. And then
we could spend an entire show talking about the Bowie.
He just hasn't popped up in my 5 albums yet, but yeah, there's always a Bowie and a Zeppelin album that make their way in. I'm a huge Zeppelin fan too, and they always make their way in because I think, and Led Zeppelin, I think they're the most talented band of all time, because even more than the Beatles. The Beatles, look, they'll tell you Ringo was a very average drummer, and you know, I mean, all the rest.
I disagree. I disagree because
he did what he did good, but he wasn't that talented.
But
a lot of people could have done it.
You listen to some of his drumming, and it's as good as the drummer from Blondie that was amazing and carried them forward.
Clyde Burke, yeah.
I'm gently going to disagree with you on some of that. Because
I was just going to say that the Zeppelin, there's an album that came out a few years ago. It's a triple album. It's called How the West Was Won. It was from Jimmy Page's, the guitarist's files. He recorded their West Coast tour in the 70s. After I think their third or fourth album, they did a tour, and he recorded every show and kept it. And just a few years ago, like 10 years ago, he said, "I've got all these tapes in the back. Let's come out with this album." And so this is Led Zeppelin at their zenith. I mean, after Zeppelin 4, when they were top of the world. And I've listened to that album. There is not one single bad note on that album, from John Paul Jones, from Bonham, the drummer, from Jimmy Page, from Robert Plant, the singer. It is amazing how good they were in their day, and how
now, here's everybody's homework assignment. If you expect me to tell my Miley Cyrus story,
oh dear.
If you expect me to tell my Billy Ray Cyrus, Miley Cyrus adjacent story, next week I will. But your homework assignment is to go watch the documentary, the 2008 documentary, It's About to Get Loud, which is Jimmy Page, Jack White, and The Edge.
Yes, I've seen it. It's great. Oh, it's wonderful.
It's one of the best documentaries.
Yes.
But it absolutely highlights what makes each of these three amazing guitarists so spectacular in their craft. And I could rave about how Jack White literally makes a guitar while he's being interviewed. I could talk about The Edge going back to the primary school where they came together and formed the band. But it's when you see Jimmy Page talking about how he was a session musician in a skiffle band, and you realize what it really, really, really took. And there's some now arguments, I think valid arguments, against Mike's point about Ringo. I have heard from any number of drummers, including my drumming obsessed niece, that you know, there are key drummers that carry a band to another level. And I said the guy from Blondie. I said, you know, we were talking about Ringo, the guy from Blondie, Keith Moon, that was really a tremendous drummer.
So what you're trying to say, Jim, and I think you're right when you say this. He was the perfect drummer for that band, because that band did not need a John Bonham. It did not need a Keith Moon. It just needed a guy who could keep time and keep the geniuses, who were George Harrison, John Lennon, and Paul McCartney. He could just keep it all together. And so I would say you're right on that. They did not need a spectacular drummer. What he did, but he's not better than any of those guys. If you look at 70s drummers, '60s drummers. He's not better than a lot of these people.
I'm going to gently disagree with my colleague and say that what I believe you're trying to say is that you don't believe that Ringo is as good as Neil Peart, and I will agree with you.
Okay, well, I mean, I wasn't going to bring up Neil because that's a bad point to make. He's not.
There's Neil Peart, and then there are so many other drummers, and Neil Peart, God bless his soul, like this is a guy who started off selling agriculture implements and wound up in the Hall of Fame deservedly for being one of the greatest drummers of all time. So,
but yeah, so I will just disagree. I will say he's the perfect drummer for that band, just the same way that I will say that Bonham was. Look, when Bonham died, they broke up because they said, what's the point? I mean, he was the Led Zeppelin drummer. Believe me, the Who should have broke up when Keith Moon died because they didn't have a lot of great moments after Keith Moon died. There's certain people that they fit that band. That is their band, and the drummer that they talk about how much John Bonham meant to Zeppelin, what he did. And when you hear some of these live albums, you're just like, wow. I mean, it's right. I mean, he. Yes.
You're talking, and the only thing I can see is all the evidence that keeps coming up that says you're wrong, and so you're wrong. And you wrapped yourself in wrong, and now you're settling into your comfy blanket.
Evidence. Ringo was an average drummer. Sorry, guys. Sorry, you guys are going to hate that. You know,
no, because I can't.
I think Charlie Watts was better than Ringo. I mean, I'll go. I can't think of any drummers.
Eric, can you just take Captain Wrong off the screen for a minute because he's so wrong. He doesn't even need airtime.
No.
Here's your assignment. I can't remember which intro it is, but there is a Beatles intro where they took forever trying to learn how he did his backbeat, and I can't think of what the song is. But I would tell everybody you're gonna walk away from your computer or phone or whatever you're watching this on, and I tell you to go have Alexa or Spotify or whatever play Blondie's Dreaming. Play and listen to that intro and listen to how he absolutely attacks the drum and sets the tempo for the song and sets it and does it all. Like literally, he's the powerful force behind that song. And I can't think of the Ringo. I can't think of the. But it took him forever to diagnose how Ringo managed to do the beat. All right, fine. I'm going to look it up because you're so damn wrong.
Yes, you're wrong.
Buddy Carlos of Cheap Trick was better than Ringo. I mean, I could go down the line. Yeah, and the Blondie drummer, I would say the Blondie drummer is comparative to Ringo in a lot of ways, in that he did what he was supposed to do and did it good.
He wasn't a great drummer.
Wasn't a great drummer.
Okay, so here we go. One of the percussive highlights of his career was the song "Rain," a B song,
which is a great song. It is.
Tell Me Why, Act Naturally, A Day in the Life, Hello Goodbye, Something, I Feel Fine, Ticket to Ride.
Those are all. You're telling me all songs he didn't write. So yeah, they're great songs. They're all songs he didn't write though.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of what the song is because it took him forever to figure out how he did the backbeat, and I don't. Anyway,
he was an accomplished. Look, the reason they picked him over.
Oh, quit shoveling, man! The hole's already
Pete Best was he was an accomplished studio musician, and Pete Best was not, and that was a good choice because I don't think the Beatles would have been anywhere as popular with Pete Best as a drummer. He was too young. He couldn't hit the beats. He couldn't hit the.
I can't wait to tell my Billy Ray Cyrus adjacent story next week.
All right. Well, we'll save that for next week.
By the way, the documentary you talked about with White and Edge and Page. If you ever wanted to know why Page is the greatest guitarist of all time, look at the awe that Jack White and Edge are watching him. They are some of the greatest guitarists of all time, and they're looking at him like we're with God. We're with the great. I mean, they're just like not worthy. And so if those guys are sitting there going, Jimmy Page, not worthy, he is the most amazing guitarist of all time.
It's about to get loud. It's a treat. It's just wonderful to watch.
It's a great documentary.
It is just a fabulous
It really is
documentary.
good.
And I rarely, I mean, I give it a 5-star review. You got to watch it at least once, and you absolutely have to watch it in the best home theater sound up. Like, convince a friend to have you over because it's just spectacular.
Absolutely.
And that's a good place to put a pin in it. Well, folks, you got your homework assignment. Nobody's going to actually check to make sure you do a report. You got your homework assignment. I expect at least a handful of you to be prepared for next week.
You're all going to really like the Miley Cyrus story or the
God.
story. It's a great one.
I'm
sorry. So,
Gen Con,
2 weeks. Big thing to remember is we're coming up on the deadlines. So the 19th is the deadline for registering items for the auction, and then the week later is for the consignment store. Jerry, great reminder. Sorry, we got carried away tonight. And so Gen Con's 2 weeks away. AidCon next week. Mike will be there along with Zach and the whole crew. It's gonna be a big back-to-back 2 weeks. So
yep.
Did you get the package I sent you, Jim?
I did. The package showed up, and I've got that. So
Awesome.
I was going to talk to you, but I was going to mention that after the show. But.
Good deal. All right. Okay. Yeah, that's great. So yeah, that boy, Gen Con just sneaks up on you every year, doesn't it? Just
and then mugs you.
Yes.
Yes. It's like waking up and she's gone, and she took your wallet and she drove your car just out of spite.
Oopsie. We may or may not have a special guest next week. We may or may not have Mike next week, so
you'll have me for a little bit. I'll pop in, but I don't know if I'll, depending on my dinner with Andre. I mean, Alex. We'll see what happens. Alex,
enjoy your tacos, Mike. That's all I'm going to say. Enjoy.
I think I don't know if we'll have tacos, but we'll see. Maybe.
Wow.
Oh, wow. James has the comment to end the show on.
Okay, because
James people his big package.
What a hack. Why is this hack listening to our show anyway? Why don't you write something? You need to write something, James, because
And on that note, so long, farewell, off feeders, and good night.
Well, folks, live streams the next couple of nights at 8:00, so join us on our channel. And other than that, thank you to my co-hosts. Congrats to those who got free membership for a month. And if you want to join the channel, that's the QR code up in the corner, right there. Be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice, roll them well, and I'll catch many of you tomorrow night.